to go talk coaching philosophy just a second so you know where I'm coming from. I coach in an inner city school. Jeffersonville's about 2,200 kids. I've also coached in a school of 800, and I've coached in a school of 300, and I've coached college for 1 year. Why did I stick with 2,200? I don't want to get religious on here, but maybe it's a calling, right? I've counted 4 state title teams I turned down. People think I'm crazy for it, but every time they would say like, "Hey, you could come here and win a state title," and then I'd say, "How do you know that?" And they go, "Man, the parent support. You won't even have to take a kid home ever." And that right there, that statement always was like, "Well, I'm not even needed. They're going to win this despite me." So I've kind of stayed in the setting I'm at. It's not easy every day, but I think it can lead to a lot of good experiences in me being able to talk to you about resilience, grit, and mental toughness. My high school wrestling coach basically formed my coaching philosophy, which is if we don't take the time to teach kids the right way, someone with more time will teach them the wrong way. First day of school, I hand every new teacher at school a t-shirt of Just Wrestling with that on the back because they're a teacher, and that's what I hope the people in my school are doing. For my kids, my philosophy is count on me. If you don't know the song Count on Me, it's from Gladiator with Cuba Gooding Jr. way back. You might not know it. I was in college. It was on the Ohio State 1993 highlight tape. The Count on Me song, it just stuck with me. And I thought anytime a kid, a coach, an athlete, a parent can be counted on, I think that's like the biggest thing compliment I can get. You know, whether I'm a jerk, whether I'm nice, whether I'm funny, I'd like everybody to be able to say I can be counted on. And I know I'm like talking a million miles an hour because I want to say a lot, but in a short amount of time. So if you don't know that song, it's on there. Count on Me. That's the first thing we do in our mental training every season. They don't like the song because it's 1991 probably, and it sounds like 1985. But if you know this song, we talk about the words so that the whole season we can talk about why we want to be counted on. The other thing I talk about when I do coaching clinics, whether it's wrestling, football, strength and conditioning, those are the 3 things I do at my school. I usually start off with a big joke because Tyler knows me. Like it's very hard for me to stay serious. My wife is like, "Do these people really take you serious on here?" Because nothing's ever serious until it needs to be serious. And so I'll start off this. I'll be like, "Hey, you guys love wrestling?" Because when I first got to Jeffersonville, probably the first 5 phone calls, this was the year that Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton, if you know all these names, they all lived in Jeffersonville, Indiana, and that's where Ohio Valley Wrestling was. And they would ship these guys there, and that's where they would learn before they'd go to WWE. So I'm here in town with Kurt Angle, here in town with Brock Lesnar. Pretty cool setting, but they're my age at that point, right? We're a bunch of 22-year-olds that just moved here. And no, I'm not friends with any of them, but I pretend like I am because they lived here for a moment. Supposedly they'd eat a lot of wings at Hooters. But anyway, the point was, because we have 3 Hooters here. It was once the hub of the country. It's not anymore. They all shut down. But my point was, I would say, you love wrestling, because these people, these parents would call me and they'd say, I want my kid to wrestle. Is it safe? And I'd say, sure, it's safe. Every move's like controlled. We don't body slam anybody. We don't do none of that. And they're like, you don't body slam people? Well, we thought we were learning to professional wrestle. And I was like, oh, no, we'll teach them to wrestle real safely. Click. And they would hang up. That's not a joke. I bet I had 5 phone calls my first year here in Jeffersonville, because there's only 7 kids that wrestled here. And to this day, if you watch Netflix, that show Wrestlers is probably 10 minutes from our house. So we still get those phone calls of people that they're going to be in a feeder system for pro wrestling. And I do watch pro wrestling. So I do feed on it. But so I'd say, do you love wrestling? And every coach would raise their hand. I'd say, do you love football? And they'd raise their hand. And I'd say, man, I don't love wrestling. I don't love football. It can't love me back. I learned that the hard way a few times in life, right? Like, you want to love things that love you back. You don't want to love your house. It can't really love you back. Kids can love you back. So I make sure I tell people, like, I love kids and my way of connecting with them is through wrestling. So like we can't always teach everybody mental toughness in the world. They got to want what we have. So once I have that wrestling connection with them, I can teach them mental toughness. I can teach them love. And that's why I still coach football. That's why I still do strength and conditioning, because I can't teach them grit, resilience, and toughness unless they want what I have. So I love the kids, and wrestling is my avenue. And I kind of start off with that as a lecture to people to say, like, I think that's what you should do. So first word we'll talk about, it's kind of the key word, the trigger word in society right now. I heard somebody the other day say, I hate the word grit. And I didn't ask them why. Maybe they didn't like the movie True Grit's a pretty good movie, but maybe they didn't, I don't know. But perseverance and passion for long-term goals, or for a long time. So I put that mountain on there. It's a long time. I got Sarah Hildebrandt down there. I got lucky enough to be there when she won her gold medal. And I even have that flag hanging in my, actually it's right there, because my wife doesn't let me put up wrestling awards in the living room. So I keep bringing it out and setting it there. There's no wrestling awards in the house, but I keep telling her Sarah Hildebrandt's flag is going to be sitting there. Like, I got to see her growing up wrestling. Coach Harper, listened to him, her high school coach, who is, at not in her corner, but behind the corner in the finals match, and talking about how, like, her resilience was, he didn't want her to wrestle because she was a girl, right? This is more than a decade ago, her coming into high school. And so getting to see her grit, her toughness, her resilience, and seeing it come up on top of that mountain is pretty awesome. So that's what this whole thing's going to be about. I'll keep coming back to the word grit, because I think somewhere in a long definition of grit would be the words toughness and resilience. I think somewhere in the definition of resilience would be the words grit and toughness. And you can kind of see the cycle I'm going on. So a lot of people, this has been I have 3 coaches that wrestled for me on my middle school football staff, and none of them wrestled after their sophomore year of high school. They were football players. 2 of them went off to college to play. And I was mad at them at the time. I'm so glad I didn't jab it into them, because now they're all 25 years old and they're coaching football for me, and they all tell people you should wrestle. That gave us our base. And so that taught me a lot. But one thing I've been going through with those 3 young coaches is, we were losing some games, and they're saying, we can't teach heart. We can't teach heart. Coach Struck, can we teach heart? And I was like, we can. We got to want what they have. You guys got to quit yelling at them. They're yelling a lot. And I'd stand back. I'm the old coach trying to teach these guys to take over. And so that got me to thinking now, coaches will say, can you teach mental toughness? And I absolutely think you can. And a couple proofs to that would be like, why do Navy SEALs have their SEAL training? Why would they have SEAL training if they couldn't learn to be a little bit tougher? They weren't born Navy SEALs. They had to become Navy SEAls. I use the example of Goggins down there, the picture on the bottom left. If you get a chance to read any of his books or listen to him, I'll go on record saying a little bit too much cussing for me. Not that I'm clean mouthed everywhere, but I wouldn't write it or do it live. But you'll get the point that he had to go through SEAL training more than once to learn to be tough enough. And I could even argue that having to go through it, having to fail and go back through it would possibly make you mentally tougher than everybody that just knocked it out once. Because I know sometimes I've done something in my life before, but because I failed, I didn't want to do it again. I mean, he failed at one of the biggest tests in the world and went after it again. Alexander the Great, I have a history degree. And I like reading stories of how his dad would have him jump in the river every single day for cleanliness, for exercise, whatever. And Alexander the Great had to learn to wrestle. So I'm using him as example. But in the winter, he would make him bust the ice to the river and jump in every day. And part of that training was just I don't like to do this. It only takes a second. I got to do it every day. And his dad set that up. Like, it's the only thing I'm asking you to do once a day is jump into the river. Doing things you don't like, doing hard things. The next 2 pictures are Teddy Roosevelt. If you don't know, at one point he set up an arena in the Oval Office of the White House, and he wrestled Frank Gotch and boxed Hammer. German boxer in there. And he was seen as a very frail kid, very sickly kid, asthma, all the other things. You can look him up, but he was a wrestler, right? And he set it up in there. And when they asked him why he did these things, it was because it was hard and he wanted to be something greater. It wasn't just like, I love wrestling, right? So, he used that. And then I'm just using the example of Bruce Lee at the end. I don't know that much about him, but I remember reading one time that to build toughness in his hands, he would sit at stoplights and stop signs and punch the floorboard because stress makes us tougher, right? Stress on our bones makes us tougher. That's why jump training is big for girls on resistance of bone damage and ACL tears. So he knew that way back before any of this research was done, and he would do that just to make his body tougher. So, and that took a lot of mental fortitude. So we can build our body and our brain at the same time. As a strength coach, I get these questions in clinics. And I say to them, you can make a fast kid faster. I was making sure I didn't write, you can make a fat kid faster. And a slow kid faster, but you can't make a slow kid fast. So people will come into my strength clinics and they'll say, my kid's slow, I want him to be fast. And I got to be honest with them, you can't be fast. I will never be fast. I got faster as I got older, but when I was gonna go play football in college and not wrestle, my 5'6" 40, that's a real time as a senior, was not gonna get much better. It probably have improved to that time. So you can't make a kid faster, but you can take a person from where they are and make them better. And that's where I am on mental toughness, grit, and resilience. We can take this kid where they are, where they walk in, and take them. So we meet them where we are, we take them forward. So when my coaches are talking about heart, we can't teach them heart. Yeah, we can. We can take them from here farther. They might not be the kid that was born with a large heart or born with large mental aptitude for toughness, but they can get better. And if we can improve our whole team, Bob Hossman, Hall of Fame wrestling coach, when I asked him, what could I do my first year head coaching? What could I do to make my team better? Sorry for the language. He said, coach the shit out of the worst kid in the room. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And he said, because if you slide him up, everybody slides up. He'll probably never be the best kid in the room, but if the worst kid in the room is better, your best kid is better. So the iron sharpens iron. Oh, there's a Franklin Wrestling Club person on here, and that is where Bob Hossman's from. Iron sharpens iron. Stress a muscle without breaking it, and it grows. Stress a brain without snapping it, and it grows. I've had some anxiety in my life, some pretty big times where I had to understand how the brain worked. And, I'd say maybe I snapped. And what I've learned through studying the brain is that as long as you push your brain to a point it doesn't snap, it grows, right? That's literally where the word comes, you snapped. And I think about the Joker and all these superhero movies I'd love to watch. I'm going to hope my wife doesn't come home soon because I'll probably watch Penguin tonight. It's really good. You should watch it. But those people snap, right? They put too much pressure on themselves. So we're there as guides to pull the reins back on parents and kids to keep them from snapping. And I'm also going to talk in here a little bit about keeping you from snapping, because the pressure is the only thing that makes us grow. We have to apply pressure to our muscles, to our bones, and to our brain.
Danny, I want to interrupt you there for just a minute. So when you start a season, right, it may be football or wrestling, right? You're starting off a season and you're going through preseason stuff with the team and everything like that. Are you also communicating with the athletes how you're going to bring them from point A to point B? Or is it something that you're trying to teach them along the way as they fail or are struggling?
Well, that's a great question, because that's something I started really realizing this past season. In Indiana, I'm going to make an excuse. In Indiana, there's no wrestlebacks in the state tournament. And they only take 16 to state in a one-class state. So it's very, very tough. I'd argue one of the top 3 toughest, not toughest wrestling states, but toughest to make it to state. And every day at the end of practice for years now, we do our jumping jacks and we spell state, S-T-A-T-E, state, when we do our jumping jacks. And I had to start talking to my coaches about that's our goal for the kids, state. Little Billy just wanted to make a friend. And so I would brainwash myself to think everybody yelled state every day for 4 years. And I just had to realize there was a kid that wanted friends. So yeah, I'm trying to do better about talking about that. This is my goal for you, but my purpose is to help you be the best version of yourself that you can be, or to reach your full genetic potential. And I make sure they know our purpose in the program is bigger than the goal. Our goal is like fun, right? Like, we're not talking about buying a house. We're not talking about becoming a doctor. I mean, we might talk about it, but with our program, like, my program's not a doctor. So we want to win state. We talk about that goal. It's a fun goal, but our purpose is much bigger. And I make sure I throw in purpose talk more than I do goal. But by stating state every day, they know the goal of our program. Is that too long an answer, or?
No, it's a great answer. No, I'm just curious, like, with a lot of it, even the examples that you gave of the Alexander Greats and those type of things. I mean, I'm just curious if that's how you start to build like team culture and talk with them about some of these things prior to the season starting, so they have kind of a level of expectation, or if it's more that it makes sense always
Yep.
to teach them, like, as the season goes on, as you watch them not fail, but like struggle through certain parts of the season or whatever it may be. And you're kind of coaching them up at that point.
Yeah, those questions are exactly what I'm going through. I'll start ahead of the points, but like, I'll start the season off almost every year with an article or a book, and I don't make them read the book. They'll lay on the mat. I think we have to teach toughness. We have to teach grit. We have to teach resilience. They might not know what the words mean. And then, like, midway through, you're like, you're not very tough. You're crying at practice. Well, I want to watch SpongeBob because they're in 3rd grade. And they're like, I don't know what tough is. So even at the lowest level, I'm talking about, like, who's tough? Is Optimus Prime tough? Like, take it to their level in that. So we talk about it before I ever start. If a kid's crying and hates practice, it doesn't mean he's not tough. He might just hate it. I liked algebra so much, I took all of them twice. And nobody ever, in 2nd grade, I sat next to Billy Schneider, and we were the top 2 math kids in 1st and 2nd grade. And then Jenny Simmons moved in. If I could find her today, I'd punch her. She moved in, and suddenly, when I couldn't sit next to Billy Schneider, I was not a very good math student. And he was the best one in the class, and I was the worst one. And for the rest of my career, I realized I had no base in math. So when I would get to high school, and my parents would be like, why you got a D? You used to be so good at this. I never said, like, because I used to cheat off Billy Schneider. I never learned to add. So I didn't think it was my lack of mental toughness that I'd break down in algebra. Nobody ever caught that I didn't have a base. So I'm literally going to use the words bedrock in the presentations quite a few times to talk about laying a bedrock for kids of a base. There's no math in this presentation. And everybody understands I did bad at math. I didn't like it. Okay. So grit, character, resilience, athlete first. Let's take a look at the athlete first, and we're going to talk about coaches. 70% of kids quit by the time they get to high school. 70% of the kids that quit are from single parent homes. So what that tells us, because I can't do the math, is single parent home kids are much more likely to have an aptitude to dropping out of sports. And I'm not just talking about wrestling, but to me, like, in my community, when I moved here, my dad 24 years ago said, Jeffersonville has the highest abort rates in Indiana. And I was like, what does that matter? It took me 20 years to understand that I was going to have a higher rate of kids quitting than other sports. And it took me a long time to understand that I had to have something they wanted before I could even teach them the mental toughness. So we're going to talk a little bit about what we got to do before we teach mental toughness. At the 11-year-old age is when the average age, I know you might be saying, like, my parents got divorced when I was 5 or whatever. The average age of a divorcee kid is 11 years old. Just at the cusp. They've tried all the sports. They're hitting middle school. and they cut out of there. So to me, that tells me that 6, 7, 8 grade years are like a massive transitional year with 70% of your kids at least. The other 30%, they're not quitting, right? But we don't know who the 70% are. I got a link in there for the cost of play and its effects on kids. And when you go into that link and you read that article, it's going to talk even more about single parent incomes and how that goes up and how sport. So this could be a whole nother thing about how much sports cost a kid, make them quit because their parents don't want to take them, blah, blah, blah. But it always goes back to the single parent home. And I'm not knocking, it's just something we got to be aware of as coaches. They got to want what you want to have. First, the kids have to have what you want. A principal told me that one time because I was super frustrated, probably 15 years into teaching. And he said, they got to want what you have. And I was like, well, I got strength and conditioning. Don't they want an A? And he was like, no, obviously they don't. So they're not going to work. And I wouldn't say that every kid was mentally weak in my weightlifting classes, but they didn't care if they were stronger. You know, maybe they put I don't know, the captain of the chess club in there, and he didn't care about strength and conditioning, or maybe the sport coach, I won't name a sport at all, didn't care about weightlifting in their sport, which is crazy. But the kid would tend to have a worse time because they didn't want what I have. We have to create what they want because wrestling sucks. It does. You guys on here can like get mad at me. Like, hey, kid, you want to wear some spandex? And I'm going to hit you in the face right off the bat. Because I find myself telling kids that all the time. Like, you're not preparing right. They're freshmen. Well, it was pretty good. Well, the first meet of the year, I already know you're going to wrestle the state champion. He's 18 years old and you're 14 and you're not working very hard in class. You're going to go out there on the mat with very little clothes on and get slammed by an 18-year-old with a beard.
That's some hydration packets. Or you think Alex do?
What's that?
Their microphone was on by accident.
So I thought I just offended people because I do. But like that's what you're looking at with a 14-year-old. So we have to give them something they want. Anybody know, ask a question. Don't read this list. I just copy and pasted something 15 minutes before we started. What is the number one reason per USA Today that kids play any sport? I'm going to wait. Somebody answer. Nobody's listening.
Yeah, right.
Well, I'll go on then. Number one reason kids play sport is to make friends across the board. And you know, like they don't want to be in the NFL till after they're playing the sport. They don't want to be in the NBA till after they're playing the sport. They don't even know about the Olympics because Netflix doesn't have it on there. If that's the only channel they have, they don't know about the Olympics when they're little. They're not saying, I want to be an Olympian, therefore I'll wrestle. They're wanting to make friends. So we have to grab them in by giving them that first want. That's across the board in every sport. Then when they tell me, like, because I'm in high school, when they come down the hall and they're like, I thought about wrestling, but I heard it's really hard. I'll say like, yeah, but that's my gift to you. I used to say, nah, it's not that hard. You can do it. Well, that was just a lie. And those kids would come in with false pretenses and quit. I'll say, yeah, I'm telling you, it won't be easy. I'm telling you, it's going to be worth it. And they'll be like, what do you mean? I'm like, this is your gift. I'm giving you the gift of hard. And I talk to them about that and I act like it's awesome. This is my gift. Wrestling's hard. Have you ever wanted to quit something else before? Yeah. This is going to teach you not to quit that. Have you ever been in a situation you didn't like and you didn't know how to react? Yeah. This is hard. It's going to teach you to do that. And that's kind of how I start off with a high school kid. Little kid, I'm still buying snow cones. So I want to give things now that you can take home with you. I'm like at the 30-minute mark. I don't want to talk to you much longer, but I do feel like I got some good stuff to tell you. So on the mat, like we just started back with, we're talking, look at the athlete first. This is what you can do for the kids specifically. Get them to like it first. The first shirt I ever made at Jeffersonville, I made 200 of them for a little elementary league. We went from 7 wrestlers total to 200 in our elementary league in year 1. I made them all shirts that say I wrestle because I wanted them to walk around and say I wrestle. But the kicker of it was we didn't always wrestle. Like tonight we're having dodgeball at wrestling practice. Come on in. Was practice fun? Yeah, it was awesome. What moves you learned? None. They felt awesome. They left. We didn't even wrestle. And I kind of picked that up here from a speech I heard Tom Brands give one time. He was talking, his dad, he walked off the mat after a loss, and which wasn't very often, right? And his dad goes, what Coach Gable say to you? He goes, I have no idea. And he's like, well, you seem fired up. He's like, yeah, I feel awesome. Right? Like, I want them to leave. They're in third grade. They wrestling is whatever definition I give them, right? So I want them to leave saying, I wrestle, even if they don't know how to wrestle. They want to come back into that room. So you got to play the games. Confidence is the bedrock of grit, mental toughness. Once the bedrock is laid down, all the bricks can be laid. And the bedrock is getting them to say, I wrestle, right? And they might say I play soccer and I play football, and we got all this gravel in there, right? It's a bunch of things they do. One of my former assistant coaches stepped down when he had 2 kids, but now his youngest is 4, and he's calling me like, we're coming to practice. I'm like, oh my God, what if they hate it? And so I've already planned on first practice, because I usually don't let them start till 3rd grade. He wants them to come at 4. So I'm already just going to be like, we ain't wrestling that day. Because if somebody hits him in the head, he might love it. And somebody throw him in a headlock that he doesn't know how to defend, he's going to hate it. So we're playing dodgeball day 1, but I'm going to end practice with him saying, I wrestle. Confidence comes from proper preparation. Cockiness comes from lack of self-awareness. I talk a lot to kids about social awareness and self-awareness, like they're talking when a teacher is, and it's lack of social awareness. I don't say like, you're a jerk. You're talking when the teacher's talking like, man, you have lack of social awareness. What are you talking about? No, I don't. You didn't realize other people are talking, did you? Because they really aren't doing it to make you mad. So we're starting with these bases, understanding what the difference between cockiness and confidence. The harder you work, the harder you are to beat. I repeat that 50 times a practice. I probably also repeat when their hearts are pumping, that the harder you work, the bigger your heart gets. And I want them to know that, like, physiologically, that muscle in their body that connects to their brain is getting bigger, so that when they're going like, man, am I getting tougher? Absolutely you are. It's like in the weight room. If my bench press goes from 100 to 105, 100% I gained muscle. 100%. There's no disputing that. You can say, well, he got 105, but he didn't get any more muscle. Yes, he did. If that kid, so I tell the kid, if you can make it longer in practice, you literally made your heart bigger. And I know those are cliche statements, but I think kids latch on to them. They have to know that they're going somewhere. It's very hard to graph wrestling practice. Like, yep, I think you're getting mentally tougher. Here you did this. So you got to trick them into it, but it's not a trick. It's real. Preseason. I got a link there. That's a YouTube thing I probably did 20 years ago for Indiana wrestling on games we play at practice. But I think confidence comes from playing games or other sports. They never wrestle. They can't be confident walking in going, what? You want me to go parterre? Like, I think it's a French word or something. I don't even know. I don't even like to say it, to be honest. It's not American. But they don't know what it is. They can't be confident walking in. Every kid's going to be nervous. So I tell them, nerves, the same exact chemical in your brain for saying I'm nervous is also excitement. And it's just the difference. I'm nervous to jump out of this airplane with a skydiving backpack on. I'm excited to jump at it. It's the exact same chemical. So we start talking about that the chemical change in their body is happening, and it's a good thing. It means they care. It means their awarenesses are heightened. But we talk about doing things like marathons, obstacle courses. We have a thing we do on our campus called a super mile, or trail runs. Kids hate running, right? But I literally have had probably 10 wrestlers into their senior year go do a marathon. And they'll say to me going into their senior year, what's the hardest thing I could do this offseason that's not wrestling? Go do a marathon. And I just said it once out of the blue, and 5 of them did it that same summer. Those kids thought they were untouchable because they ran a marathon to be better wrestlers. And I'm not here to argue that you need to run to wrestle. What I'm saying is that doing other hard things makes them more resilient and builds confidence, all the things we're talking about. You can build toughness and resistance through accountability. So I give them a percentage of when they've missed practice, or when they, my spreadsheet just shows up. You've only been to 68% of the practices, but those kids that have like a 98% on there, like they're super confident. I'll say, like, what percentage do you think your opponent has at practice? And we use those to bump their confidence, which bumps their mental toughness. You really can't have mental toughness without confidence. And somebody argued that with me one time. They're like, oh, this kid, he just, he wouldn't quit fighting. We were fighting. He wouldn't quit fighting. Yeah, but he wasn't confident, and that wasn't grit. That wasn't over the long haul. It wasn't up the mountain. It wasn't from ninth grade to, wrestling in the Olympics and winning a gold medal. That was just a moment of mental toughness, but it wasn't grit. It wasn't the path. It wasn't the perseverance. So the confidence has to be in there. If you skip the confidence, they're not going to have it. Too many coaches start kids wrestling too hard, too young. I put in there, some of these things don't sound good or gooder, right? Better. I know. But if you get them hurt, you didn't make them tough. You made yourself look dumb. And today I was reading an article in the newspaper in Indianapolis where some people made kids do bear crawls. It was banned, made them do bear crawls on the asphalt, and their hands were all blistered up. And I thought back to how many times I've probably done that before. Man, they didn't get any mental tougher doing that. They hated wrestling doing that. I can pinpoint a kid when I was 25 years old making we were overseas. We were in Turkey, and on a tennis court, we were doing standing Greco drills, and he was goofing off, and I made him do bear crawls. This is terrible. I'll probably go to jail. He got blisters. I've never done it again, but he didn't wrestle after that, and he probably loved wrestling. And I need to call him and apologize. I like mess so much I took it twice. I left that off there. On the mat, here's some things you can take with you. I'll go a little faster. I'm going to go super fast. Some things they can accomplish without wrestling. I use a lot of songs in practice. I have a whole journal, if you ever want this, of songs I use in practice. Roxanne, they swing a kettlebell till it says Roxanne, they face pull it. Your grip is gone, your body's gone. But after they do it a few times, they'll notice kids grab a different kettlebell. That kettlebell going up in weight tells them, you're tougher now. Well, I'm stronger. No, you're tougher. Like, you really didn't get much stronger in 3 times of doing the song. You got tougher. You learned you could make it through the song. 3 minutes, 30 seconds. Sally Up. You Google that song. We'd use it in all forms. Push up, pointer. So we do it for the body, but also like a kid going, man, I can hold a plank or push up for that song. So like, knowing it's the song, or say 2 songs is a match, right? And the kid, like I had a kid the other day, never lifted weights. We're on week 8 of school. He came up to me, he's like, that's the first time I made it through the song. Well, I'm going to ask him to wrestle next, right? But he couldn't even make it through a song. Crazy Train, Ozzy Osbourne would carry kettlebells. They can't put them down. Kids quickly find out their grip gets stronger super fast. Is the grip stronger, or are they just getting mentally tougher and going, I can make it 15 more seconds? Thunderstruck, we do, this is probably kind of our rite of passage for our middle schoolers come to high school. We do jumping jacks the whole song. We do a burpee when it says thunder. We have a sprint drill that I use the whole season. This is the only running we use in season. It takes 14 seconds to go 40 feet across the mat, 40 feet back, down, back, down, back. So twice. They have 8 of those sprints. I know that I really only want them to do 4. So this is like a fail-safe thing for kids who hustle. I swear to God, if you buy, they'll buy into it. You say you got 8 sprints, but every time you do 1, it counts as 2. If you get it under 14. So new in season, they get lazy on one of them. Well, it only counts 1. I'm like, damn it, we got to go back and do it. And they can't get lazy on the last one because they have to end on a win. So you really only run like a couple 14-second sprints. But then we start timing it. And then by January, our varsity end of January has to be under 12 seconds. Everybody else has to be under 13 seconds. It's teaching them that they got in better shape. It's not that I think running's the best. They have to have a hardcore thing that they go, yes, I'm better at that. Because I might shoot a double leg on Jordan Burroughs for my whole life and never get it. I won't know if I'm better. So I want to have statistical data to show them that they're better. Mandatory Metallica. I just make a playlist. Anytime a Metallica song comes on, they have to wrestle live the whole song. Doesn't matter what we're doing. They think it's awesome because I'm in the middle of a rant. I'm mad at them or something. I have to stop if Metallica comes on. Teach your kids to dress at a meet. Think of how many kids you go to the first meet and they can't be mentally tough because they're so embarrassed because you got the heavyweight walking around with a tank top and no shorts on, like he's sorry for the metaphor, a girl at a beach or something. Like he looks ridiculous, and that he doesn't know it until he gets there. Teach them to dress. That's going to build some confidence and mental toughness. Drilling, we always do every drill slow, medium, then fast. So I'll even show the move slow, show the move medium, show the drill fast. And then as we drill, say we're doing double legs, 3 minutes, minute one's slow as they want. I don't say anything, even if they're being lazy. Medium, fast. We try to make drills realistic so they don't freeze. What I mean by that, I have a good example from Logan Stieber was saying, Tom Ryan was saying how Logan Stieber said to him, he's over arguing a call, right? And he comes back to Logan and he's like, what are you doing? Aren't you pissed off about that call? And he's like, I got to figure out how to overcome that score. So ever since then, I literally in practice, this goes back to Tyler, how much do you talk about it? I will tell them the score is wrong. You think you're winning, but you're down by 2. The score is wrong. And tell them you got to figure out what you have to do right now to overcome the score. And since I've started doing that, like we don't lose very many close ones. And it also does go back to that mental toughness, because then I'm like, man, you needed a feet to back and you did it. You didn't just shoot on a single leg and walk behind him. That was real dumb. That'd be real dumb. They can see they're mentally tougher because they went after the correct thing. Let's see. Next, one easy, one same. A lot of times I'll put groups of 4. They don't know it, but I try to get a beginner, a medium kid, and a kid that can beat the kid, right? So there's 4. And so he has a confidence builder. He has a kid that he's the same against, and he's a kid that's going to beat his ass every time. It's tough for the beginner kid, right? Because he's the one getting beat up on. But you have other drills where you put him with the beginner group. So I got this average varsity kid. His record's 15-15. I'm putting him with somebody he can beat, somebody he's tied with, and somebody that's going to beat his butt every time so he can get better and he has confidence. We do a trail run every year. We call the Reinhardt Run, and we have a Marine Corps monthly practice. I got a link there about it. But because we've started doing that, we've had so many kids go into the Marines because they think like, man, I'm mentally tough. These guys like me. That now every time we have a Marine Corps monthly, it's one of our own Marines coming back. Like we're that deep with that many kids because we started this years ago. I didn't think I'd ever have that many. Now every single one is like, hey, I'm home for Christmas. I'm home for Thanksgiving. I'm a drill instructor now, and we can go all the time having one in there. But during this whole thing, you're a constant voice in their ear. I don't shut up during practice. And I'm not talking about like head inside on a single, get your butt down. I'm saying like the harder you work, the harder you are to beat. I'm throwing out quotes that are like struck quotes at this point because I only know like 10, right? So they're all like, oh, here's your 10 quotes. But I'm brainwashing them the whole time because with my kids, the single parent homes, they I was talking to a kid today. Why you been missing practice? And he said, well, my parents, my mom's in Mexico right now and my dad works nights. Well, what's that have to do with you? My dad expects to have dinner on the table when I get home, right? Like, so, and then he goes to bed and the dad goes to work. So he comes home from, that's all the discussion he has with his dad ever. I have to be the constant voice in their ear if they're going to learn to be tough. He is learning from his dad to, like do whatever it takes, go to work at night, but he's not getting the verbal from him, and they need that. These were just examples. I won't go through any of them because to save time. These were examples of resilience in kids in our own program. And what I'm challenging you to do is come up with 5 or 6 stories you always tell your team. That kid from Jeffersonville right there did that. You can do that too. And because so often they watch people on TV and like, well, that guy's on TV. I say this to my buddies when they're like, have you watched Rudy? That can happen. I'm like, do you know why they made a movie of it? Because it only happened once, like all those. But so I don't even believe it. Right. But when it's in my own program, I believe it. And that's why having a Marine come in, that's one of your own, is such a big deal. That's why having cops that are one of your own come in, firemen, one of your own. In my weightlifting classes, I have a monthly fireman workout. I have a monthly police workout. At wrestling practice, I have a monthly Marine workout. And it's amazing how many kids see a person, man or woman, doing that's from their hometown, and suddenly they have a new goal. I was only ever going to be a teacher because both my parents were teachers. Somebody asked me one time, why didn't you become a doctor or a lawyer? I was like, I never even knew about it. That's what my parents did. So like, I'm trying to expose them to things that their parents don't do and things that I don't do. Right. And that's what's on there with those kids. Off the mat, I'm wearing this shirt on purpose. Strength transcends sport. Tyler put in there, talk about character off the mat. The secret here is you could go with John Wooden, and he says character isn't built by sport, it's revealed by sport. But that's kind of saying that we don't have an impact as kids. And I'm not comparing myself to John Wooden, but I believe I can help enhance their character. And when I say strength transcends sport, this is what I say to them in weightlifting every day. Like, if you're strong wherever you go. If I'm strong at football, I'm strong at wrestling. I'm not suddenly like, I bench 400, but man, when I wrestle, I'm super weak. Like, that doesn't happen. And if I can translate that to, if I'm mentally strong on the marathon, I'm probably going to be mentally strong when I'm wrestling. There's some overlay there of confidence, knowing how to do the thing. But we say this a lot: strength transcends sports. So that the whole character part, like once you have this down, it just takes off. Grades, we talk about grades a lot. I told you we're one of the lowest test scoring schools in the state. I won't get too, we can be pretty rough, but last 2 years in a row, our wrestling team won the state's GPA award. We taught. So when Tyler said, do you talk? Like, every day I'm talking. The other teams that I haven't had a kid fail off the team, but maybe twice in 24 years. And we run about 60 to 70 kids on the team, and they're the kids just like you. The principal says, hey, I caught him fighting in the hallway. Put him on your team. The only thing I ever say to the principal on that is please never judge my entire team's GPA as long as you're always putting the kid fighting in the hallway on my team. So they'll say to me well, they got to get good grades. I'm like, I got to get them to like it. Then I can get them on JV. But if they're going to be my varsity, they got to have a higher grade standard. So I have a higher grade standard for varsity. And last 2 years in a row, we won that. And I tell the kids, grades talk about their character. Working hard at wrestling says you love wrestling, right? Or says you like me. But grades say something about their character the rest of the day. So a lot of times I don't even talk to them about, what do you want to be when you grow up? You want to be an astronaut? No, it's too late, and crush their dream. But character, it's saying that wherever they go, they're doing the best they can. So grades say a lot about the character. Black team and team songs, we do these. We talk about songs. There's a list of them on the right. That was the back of a t-shirt one year. That was a list of our team songs. We talk about songs often because in the song, you're going to talk about, mental toughness. I'm running down a dream, Tom Petty. I'm getting mentally tougher. He's going the distance. They have to have stories about this because single parent home, they might not get these stories. That link on there in blue that is 52 journaling pages I made up that my kids go through every week of the year. We fill out a journal entry on a different topic. It's there for you. And then the last thing I do with the kids we do yoga at least once a week. And in that time, I'm saying, blow out the negative, bring in the confidence, and we're taking them through those things. I told myself under an hour. I don't know what these normally are. Grit, character, resilience. So let's look at the coach. In 2017, coaches were quitting in 7 or less years of coaching. In Indiana right now, the average tenure, depending on the sport, is 3 to 5 years. And I'm at year 24, and Coach Mayab's at year 64 coaching. I finally got you to smile. I didn't know if you were really on there. Yeah, but you could see like coaches are mentally breaking, and there's way more on coaches than there ever used to. I can't explain to you how many things we got to do. You have your own. Like I just have crazy things I have to do that are like, do you know how long that takes me at night? And that breaks us, right? But we got to be resilient and mentally tough enough to push through that. The first thing that you have to try to do is be a kid magnet. You have to be the most positive person you know, because teaching and coaching is hard, right? Like, we've had kids die, we've had their parents die, we've spoke at their funerals, we've been best mans in weddings. Like, we have the highs and the lows off the mat. But if you choose to be there, sometimes I have to drive to work going, I chose this job, I chose this job, I chose this job, because I have had 5 straight 16-hour days. I haven't had a break on a Sunday. I love my wife and she wants to hang out, but I promised a kid a morning session, and I have to drive to work, go and be the most positive. I legit repeat it. And when I walk in the door, I have to fake it till I make it, right? Like, to not quit, you have to do those things. And to make an impact on kids, you have to do those things. So some things to keep you in the game longer: keep learning or quit coaching. You guys know that, or you wouldn't be on here. Wouldn't a kid feel more confident in their coach if they knew their coach was going out and learning? You've always heard like a parent go, he's been in the game so long, he doesn't know the newest moves, the latest blah, blah, blah. Well, buddy, wrestling's been around for 3,000 years. I don't know if they've changed that much in the last 30, but I'm trying to keep up on my 30. But I go to so many clinics and I let the kids and coach it and the parents know that they know I'm up to date on stuff. Right. And then you are, once you do it. Wouldn't the kid feel more comfortable if they saw you reading a book? Like, I make sure at lunch every day I hold a book. Sometimes I go 3 weeks without reading it. I carry it to lunch every day. I know it's like can be a fake it thing, but then I have to open it and start reading, and then I end up liking it. I want them to see me at a clinic. I want them to see me reading. So maybe it's a braggart thing, but I post when I'm in a clinic. I want the kids to see me getting an education, and I expect them to get an education. List of clinics I like going to are right there in that link. I let the kids know about my day. I don't tell them when my wife's yelling at me, or she doesn't. But I don't tell them the bads, but I let them know, like, man, I'm excited to be here. I got here at 6 a.m. and I left last night at 7 p.m. and we didn't have a meet, and I was still at school 13 hours. This is awesome. I make sure they kind of know my day, and I talk through it with them, and I'm sure you guys all have days like that. But I let them know that, because they might not have that parent at home learning this is how a day should be. Like, typically you're 9 to 5, unless you're the owner of the business. Like, everybody else is doing overtime, right? Trying to make it by. And I want them to see me doing overtime so they don't think it's such a big deal. So let them know about your day. That helps them with their mental toughness. Let them see you setting challenges for yourself. I like to go to Colorado. I go to a clinic out there every year, and I try to climb a 14er. And if I can't get to the 14er, I try to do a 10,000, right? And I let them see that. And when they start complaining, like, man, you made us run a mile at practice, I'm like, one time I did an Ironman, climbed a 14er, and did another marathon in less than a week. And I don't want to brag about it to them, but I want them to know, like, man, there's bigger stuff than this. I didn't know that running a 5K in my high school, I thought running the mile was hard, right? Like, oh my God, we got to run a mile in PE class today, until I started doing marathons. And then I was like, oh my God, miles were ridiculous. Why did we ever? They need to see you doing that. I can't run anymore. I've had 13 surgeries, but I let them see me lift weights with them daily, even if it's lightweight. I let them see me be the first person in the school building every morning, and I let them see me be the last person to leave. I know you got kids and stuff, but your version of that, they need to see. Get outside. Reading a book right now about just mental health and people being outside. I won't get into that. We all know it's healthy. If it's above 55 degrees outside in January, we practice outside. And maybe we're not winning a state title, but I sure have kids go like, that was awesome. I haven't seen the daylight since October. And it pumps me up. It gives me mental freshness. So we do that. We do a trail run at the beginning of the season. We all take a snow hike mid-season. Just studies say, like, I think it's there was a cortisol level in your brain. 5 hours a week outside had massive levels. When do you go outside during wrestling? So if I can get them outside for an hour for that one drill, and we can get outside 15 minutes some other days, and then I remind them on Sunday, go for a jog, like, it's a big deal. So if we can see sunlight, we do it. On a Friday, if we don't have a meet on a Saturday, we practice before school. Even though it's only 45 minutes, they see daylight at 3:00 on Friday. So teaching them, even though you want to be so mentally tough, to hang in there is a big deal. I just picked these 8 books on grit, character, and mental toughness, mostly doing with wrestling. I won't explain them. Those are just 8 good ones. My list of favorite books is there in the link. And then I'm done. Sorry it took so long, and I've just been talking and nobody's been talking. But I don't know. Tyler said do a clinic, and I made it up this morning. So in closing, I try to get, like, I'm talking about multi-sport athletes and stuff in there. I think it makes them better. Opportunities never lost. Someone will take the one you miss. That's a quote from a really good book, Climbing for Gold, that I wrote. It's also a really good book. So it's a really good quote that I said from a really good book that I wrote. You can look that up. But anyway, you got to make kids get the opportunities to be mentally tough. They're not going to be mentally tough when they come in and Billy's dad going, I'm here to make him tougher. Well, he hates it. He's not going to be tougher. He hates it, right? So mental toughness comes from some want to do it. Those Navy SEALs that are so tough, they signed up for it. Their parent didn't sign them up for it, right? You might have kids that are only at wrestling to make friends and make dad happy, right? So we got to put something else in there. I've had kids that I know didn't like wrestling. They were doing it for mom, but I didn't want to lose them from their lineup because they were pretty damn good. So I had to do something else with them to keep them happier. And then I tell myself this, and I tell kids this when they're hurting. I say, I'm tougher than anyone else that this has happened to, and they made it through it. So, like, I went through a divorce. I thought I was dying, right? And I would keep telling myself, well, that guy did, and I'm tougher than him. And I'm not trying to belittle others, but I tell my kids that, like, yeah, you tore your ACL. That person tore their ACL, and they made the state finals. Like, this was a legit conversation, Gary, that a girl in a junior college I had in Iowa, this is her, Caleb Buchanan, she career's over, ACL tore, sits out a year. And I just kept saying to her, don't you think other people have came back from ACL tears? And she was state runner up after missing a year. And she tore ACL playing football because she was a pretty big badass and was a cornerback. He had a 6A school playing it. But I had to keep telling her other people have made it through this. So I use that a lot. Thank you for being on here. If you want the PowerPoint, that QR code is the PowerPoint. And then I just want to make a plug for my book. I just wrote it, and I think it's fun, and you should read it. Sorry for talking so long. That's 59 minutes. I'm 1 minute short.
Ready to try MatBoss for yourself? Get started today with our free stats app. No limits, no strings attached. Visit matboss.com/stats to get your free account.